Welcome to our first monthly briefing in 2017. As you can see, it happens that last Tuesday in the month is also the last day of the month. Therefore, we have a perfect day for the summary of the developments during the month of January. As you know, we will follow the same approach as we did during the previous monthly briefing. We will summarize the main developments through the IG barometer, and we will highlight three trends, and this time we will also reflect on the forecast for 2017. We will try to provide both summary of the main developments during January and also indicate what we expect that will be happening in the forthcoming months. Next slide, please. Could we have next? Okay, now, those of you who know my style of delivering presentation, I'm not particularly fan of the text-intensive PowerPoints, but you cannot do it differently. We have the list of events in January. Don't worry, we won't be going through the whole list of the events. We'll reflect on them during the presentation. And some of you attended those events, especially events in Geneva, but as you can see, the developments were picking up, especially in the second part of the month with the events around the CSTD, Commission on Science and Technology for Development in Geneva. Today we had an interesting session on the online extremism co-organized by UNOG and DCAF at the UN. But we'll be reflecting on these events during the session. Next, please. Okay, when it comes to the barometer and to the main developments over the last 30 days, in the field of a global IG architecture, the main developments was basically start of cycle of the preparation for the next Internet Governance Forum, and in particular meeting of the working group on enhanced cooperation of the Commission on Science and Technology for Development. I'm sorry for these long titles, but sometimes it's better to introduce them, not just to use acronyms. Working group on enhanced cooperation is discussing, among other issues, if there is a need to have some sort of global governance framework on the ICT issues. And there are basically two views. On one side, there is a view that enhanced cooperation already exists, and there is no need for any special mechanism for the coordination on the global level. And on the other side, and I would say the first group is mainly located among the actors from developed countries, not necessarily, and the other view mainly from G77, some of the G77 countries arguing that there is a need for the new mechanism on the global level, preferably, but some of those actors located at the UN. Discussion was quite interesting, especially towards the end of the working group on enhanced cooperation, and there has been also one can say the third view that maybe between these two views that everything is fine and there is no need for any coordination, and the other view that there is a need for the UN-based coordination. There has been a view that there could be some sort of coordination mechanisms and at the international level that should reflect multi-stakeholder approach. And both views, one that there are already existing mechanisms like in the field of online trade, cybercrime, and that mechanism, coordination mechanism, can provide a coordination on the international level. As you can see, the barometer was picking up. The second topic was sustainable development, and in the field of sustainable development, again, Commission on Science and Technology for Development was discussing how to make a better synchronization between CSTD process, between Sustainable Development Goals, the Agenda 2030 on one hand, and on the other hand, the VSIS process, which is going to be one of the major frameworks for the forthcoming discussion on digital issues. In Cape Town, the UN hosted the World Data Forum. It was a very interesting event, and we have some fresh breezes from the South Africa. Namely, whenever one discusses question of data, it is often framed in the question of big data, more data processing. But these people in Cape Town made a step back and say, okay, let us see if we have a good national statistical authorities. And they said we should focus more on strengthening, especially in developing countries, the national authorities for providing good statistics. It is a healthy development because there is a strong focus that just big data will be the panacea and will solve all problems of humanity. Therefore, step back and reality check through the traditional statistic was a healthy message coming from Canberra. In the field of security, I'm sure that all of you are familiar with what's happened at the very beginning of the year, especially about, which really started with a report of US security agencies, which which reported the alleged Russian involvement into the cyber attacks, and especially in providing fake news during the presidential campaign. It was denied by Russian authorities, and the expert community has sort of different views. Some arguing that even if it had happened, it was very difficult to prove it with existing tools due to the use of the anonymity tools, Tor and the other applications. Therefore, that in a way marked the very beginning of the year. Year started with a high media coverage of this controversy and tension between Russia and the United States. Another important event which wasn't that visible, but I would say technically is much more important for cybersecurity, was that famous Israeli company, Celebrity, which is used for cracking mobile phone and the most secure communication, they made an announcement that there was a breach of their information security. Therefore, the one question is, what's happened with the guardians of the guardians? Because if this company was considered to be one of the most sophisticated companies and they announced that there was a breach of their security, it is really on the technical side on cybersecurity, very, very interesting development. Another important development in security was the lawsuit initiated by US Federal Trade Commission against D-Link company. I'm sure that you're familiar with the company which produces cameras, microphones, and Internet of Things. The name is D/Link. US authorities accused the D-Link that they didn't provide sufficient security protection, which was used as a backdoor during a denial of services attack in October last year. Which brings us to one of the major issues that will be on the agenda during this year is the protection of the new Internet of Things, new devices which will be having more and more used in our daily life. They are not designed with a high security level in mind. They are basically gadgets, but they are used, as they were used during the denial of services attack, as a tool for mounting the major attacks. The Federal Security Service in Russia announced that major commercial banks in the country were targeted as a massive cyber attack by hackers in November last year. That the whole cybersecurity scene is warming up during the very cold month of January, but it seems that it is a clear sign that this topic will be high of the agenda during this year. When it comes to e-commerce, we can see stronger push towards taxation worldwide. Colombia basically passed new rules that impose 19% taxation on internet services paid by credit card, primarily targeting companies like Netflix, Uber, Spotify, and Airbnb. Therefore, governments will be looking more and more for additional funds, and the first target obviously are the internet companies, who are the healthiest part of the modern economy. Similarly, in Canada, government is considering imposing the so-called Netflix tax on digital services brought from foreign companies over the internet. In the UK, thousands of eBay and Airbnb users are being pursued by the British tax office for not declaring their earnings from so-called sharing economy. In Indonesia is continuing its pressure on the internet companies to pay the taxes in Indonesia, and they're claiming, for example, from Google, $25 million in taxes. This trend is going to continue, and it is very, very clear, especially if the protectionist measures are going to be in place during this year. Next slide, please. David, next. Okay, fine. Good. The next development is on digital rights. African Union and European Union stressed the importance of digital rights during their meeting, recent human rights dialogue. European Court of Justice has ruled that security concerns are not sufficient reason to deny a prisoner's internet access. An interesting ruling by European Court of Justice, and we can expect much more coming from Luxembourg and the European Court of Justice, especially in the next Uber ruling on if the Uber is transportation or information company. Turkey has announced that Turkey will develop its own search engine, which will reflect Turkish cultural and national values. This is another interesting development in this field. David Kay, UN Special Rapporteur, criticized UK authorities that they are trying to introduce age verification for the access by minors to the materials to prevent children from accessing online pornography and other materials. David Kay argued that it can be the first step towards profiling who are the users of the internet, and it can reduce the level of anonymity and the freedom of access to the internet. In the field on legal field, and in particular on jurisdiction, the major development in January was that famous Microsoft case where Microsoft challenged the US authorities when US authorities requested access to Microsoft data based in Ireland. Microsoft in 2016 challenged that request, sub poena, and they won the case. And there was appeal, but then this appeal is refused. Therefore, the case is now more or less legally fixed. Therefore, that's extremely important case because it specified that internet companies based in the United States cannot request access to data if it is hosted by the, let's say, Microsoft Ireland and companies abroad. United Arab Emirates and Uber made an interesting deal that Uber can use only 14,000 cars in United Arab Emirates. That's sort of the new type of deals which Uber is concluding with the national governments. European Parliament had adopted a report outlining a recommendation for the introduction of civil law rules on robotics. And I suggest that all of us put the European Parliament on the radar because they've been trying to introduce some thinking about how to regulate or at least guide development in artificial intelligence and robotics. And here is one of the reports. Chinese government said that it will start shutting down providers of services that do not have authorization to run cross-border operations, and its main concern for the so-called VPN, virtual private network access. As you know, most of the internet, especially foreigners in China, are accessing Facebook and other services by using VPN. Therefore, that order may basically criminalize the use of the VPN for the access to the internet. Next topic is infrastructure. Infrastructure access to the internet was basically shut into English-speaking Anglophone parts of Cameroon due to the protest of the teachers Anglophone teachers in Cameroon. As you know, Cameroon is bilingual. You have the Anglophone and Francophone part. Anglophone teachers complained that they were discriminated. They had less funding, less resources than Francophone teachers. And then the solution for the government of Cameroon was basically to shut the internet in the whole part of the country which speaks English. And that was really criticized on the internet. Marshall Islands were cut from the internet because of the problems with fiber optic cable. As you notice, we put ICANN and we removed the IANA transition and the ICANN issues as the main topic that we'll be following. It's now part of the infrastructure basket, which is, I guess, good news for ICANN. It's moving out of the limelight and getting as a part of the infrastructure. Net neutrality. Net neutrality we didn't have any major developments, but we had a major appointment. The new chairman of the FCC, United States Federal Communication Commission, is a strong opponent of the rules of the net neutrality. And he opposed it during the discussion. He was a member of the board of FCC when the net neutrality was discussed. Therefore, it's very likely that he will start the process of the revision of the rules of net neutrality, which were introduced in 2015 by US Federal Communication Commission. India also started discussion, national consultations on net neutrality. The new topic that we introduced for a more careful monitoring are new technologies, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, big data. That's broader basket. Here again, we have some activities of Department of Commerce, which issued a green paper on fostering an advancement of Internet of Things. European Telecommunication Standardization Agency is trying to introduce some standards for smart cities. Now, this is like previously mentioned question on the attack of the Israeli super security company. This is one of those issues that you cannot find in the media, but they're extremely important as structural. Standards are some sort of invisible governance, because through the standards, companies and especially companies, but also governments are trying to influence digital policy. Therefore, we should be following carefully how the standards will be developed and introduced for Internet of Things. That would be all about developments in major developments. We'll just outline the few trends. We'll go to the slide, US President, next slide. The first major trend is obviously the question, what will be digital policy of the new President of the United States, Donald Trump? It is to the large extent crystal ball exercise in many policy fields, but there are a few clear developments. First one is Privacy Shield. Trump basically issued executive order on enhancing public safety limits privacy protection only to US citizens. Therefore, privacy protection in the United States is now covered only for US citizens. And one of the first, let's say, victims of this executive order could be Privacy Shield. Privacy Shield is concluded between European Union and the United States as a solution instead of safe harbor agreement, basically ensuring that the data of European citizens are protected in the United States according to the standards which are issued in the European Union. Now, if you have this executive order, the question is what is going to happen now with the data of European citizens, and not only European citizens, all foreigners. It is going to be one of the major issues. Second, as I already indicated, will be the question of net neutrality. Newly appointed chair of the Federal Commission on the Communication is expected to initiate a review of net neutrality rules and probably new rules during 2016. And President Trump announced, and he invited the group of experts to provide him with the new cybersecurity measures within 2 months, including the list who are the US cyber adversaries and what the United States should do in order to protect its own infrastructure and also for the global cybersecurity. Those are 3 major developments so far. Everything else is guessing to what extent, in what direction new president's digital policy will move. Next. The second development, which is more, let's say, domestic, local, it's IGF preparations. This year, the Internet Governance Forum will be hosted in Geneva in December, and there was invitation for stakeholders to submit their contributions, and there is there are discussions, consultations, how international community can use the IGF hosted this year in Geneva in order to strengthen the overall global internet governance. And there have been quite a few consultations and discussions on the ideas, what could be the activities leading, build-up activities leading towards the IGF. Next. One issue which we already indicated is US-Russia, this case cyber saga continues. There was a new report by US intelligence services concluding with high confidence that the Russian president was being influenced campaign aimed at the US presidential election. Russia denies accusation. In Russia, 3 cybersecurity specialists connected to Kremlin are arrested over allegation that they were spying for Washington. And the main open question is how will the US-Russia resolve their cyber tension over the next few months? And this is another completely crystal ball exercise, and nobody basically knows what will happen in the cyber field. But probably will need to wait for this report, which is prepared by US cybersecurity experts over the next 2 months, and see what will be the suggestions and how, if Russia will be on the list of US cyber adversaries. Next. This would be more or less all for a summary for developments in the previous month of January. Now we'll move to a bit of predictions and setting the scene for 2017. If you had a chance to consult our forecast paper, you will be familiar with the major points. Therefore, I will just highlight a few key developments which we can expect during 2017. First, the question is that if globalization is challenged, the internet will be challenged as well. If you have less movement of people, goods, finances across the national border, one cannot expect that internet traffic will just go smoothly. Therefore, internet will be, to the large extent, influenced by the broader geopolitical and geoeconomic developments. The more protectionism is introduced, the more the bigger national borders are, most likely the less traffic will flow over the national borders. It is a development that could endanger and that could impact the global nature of the internet with the serious ramifications. The second development which will impact the internet is related to jobs and employments. You know that in both Brexit campaign and US presidential campaign, jobs and recreating jobs were very high on the agenda. And I have a strong recommendation that you consult the latest issue of The Economist, basically global companies in the era of protectionism retreat, which they put very eloquently the fact that global companies, telecommunication and internet companies, are very likely to be the first target of the various measures, from taxation to protectionism. And on the very conceptual political level, they're going to be targets of all movements who are looking for the creation of new jobs. Because internet industry does not create directly a lot of new jobs. It creates value, it creates for society, it creates new services, but it is not necessarily job-creating business comparing to the traditional industries. Therefore, internet industry can expect stronger pressure when it comes to the job creation, and we already see these developments after the introduction of the new administration in the United States. The third development is the social impact of the internet. And well, it is a more conceptual and more, let's say, feeling than the real policy fact. But for a long time, we have been hearing that internet will be changing the way we live, entertain, learn, and etc., etc. Now, that prediction, which sounded interesting, the future is around the corner, is basically here. Internet is really changing the way we live. It is changing our daily routines. It's changing the dynamics of modern society. In different realms, from the commercial field to education, to the social dynamics, family dynamics. I'm sure that all of you can recall the changes in the way, how many hours or minutes you spend with your family members, and what is the change in paternity, how the family operates. Therefore, this change will be really profound. Is it going to affect the internet governance? Yes, in some fields like education, it's going to have the direct consequences. It will have also consequences in the partially related to question of jobs and employment. You heard that the socialist candidate for the president who won the candidacy on the Socialist Party, he proposed the payment, sort of a payment to all citizens, which should cover basically their lack of possibility to find a job or to be active members of society. Finland introduced some sort of a similar program aimed at its sort of test pilot program, paying the limited number of people without job, jobless people, without any sort of attached string, paying them annual salary, that giving them a chance to live without pressure to find a job. Therefore, there are experiments in this direction which are related to the new social framework. Next. Forecast for 2007, unsettled weather, stormy at the times with sunny spells. When I wrote the forecast the early days of January this year, when I finished writing it, I realized that it was really, really too pessimistic. And you know, okay, it's good to be realist. It's good to write based on facts, but also we need a bit of hope, optimism, sometimes even utopia. And then I asked my colleagues to help me to give some sort of positive angle. Therefore, there are some sunny spells, and there are some chances, like every crisis, which we are definitely in the crisis situation, opens the new possibilities. Next. I will go just quickly through the major 10 trends. You can find them on the net. You can find them in the latest newsletter. But let me just summarize what are the major 10 developments that we can expect in the next 11 months. In the field of cybersecurity, the key question is this tension between conflict and cooperation, in geopolitics, mainly between Russia and the United States, and in geoeconomics, if we can call it that way, industry, protection of intellectual property between the United States and China. Strictly, concretely speaking, there will be meetings of the United Nations Government Group of Experts. They will meet in February, and they will produce a report. This is the main global body which deals with the cybersecurity issues. And they are going to see, they should give us the rules, how to manage potential conflicts on the global level involving states. This is very important. They are dealing mainly with the states. Obviously, you cannot make a clear division, but legally and politically speaking, they deal with interstate conflicts. The second big issue will be encryption. Last year, we had Apple FBI case, which was in the focus in April. And as you can recall, Apple basically, FBI requested from Apple access to the materials, access to the mobile phone of the one of the terrorist attackers in San Bernardino terrorist attack. Apple refused that based on the fact that it can endanger their security. They went to the court, but suddenly FBI made the announcement that they managed to access it. Now, there are many questions with both the case and the outcome of the case. First, FBI never explained how did they manage. The problem was that, you know, how is it in your mobiles, there are 10 attempts to basically to guess your password. And they wanted, basically, FBI wanted from Apple, ask Apple to remove that limitation. If they don't have a limitation, they, with a pure crude force, sending different combinations, they can breach the protection of the mobile phone. They managed to solve it, but the problem will remain, because internet companies will need to increase encryption in order to protect the communication of their users, to regain the trust. And national authorities, security authorities, United States, but also worldwide, will put a pressure on them to provide the data. And it is one of the core issues where necessarily you do not have right or wrong answer. You have both legitimate concerns on both sides in this dilemma, internet companies and the security community. Content policy is getting also high on the agenda with fake news and violent extremism online, violent extremism content. Fake news open one of the core discussion and push again internet companies further to the political space. They basically ask them to ensure that there are no fake news on the internet, and that they should be somehow involved in some sort of content management. Some argue that it would be censorship. Internet companies are very, very reluctant to move in any policy field. They argue that they are just a platform, they provide the services, but they don't want to interfere with the content. And it will be another big issue which will be discussed next year, both in the context of the fight against terrorism, but also in the discussion on the fake news. Fourth trend is a powerful interplay among artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and big data. And in this triangle, the interplay goes this way. Cars, refrigerators, whatever tools that we have been using in the past were in a way dumb tools. We were operating them, putting food in the refrigerators or driving cars or using this Internet of Things devices. Now artificial intelligence provides them with a really powerful intelligence and the way of dealing with the problems. And it was clear during the Las Vegas summit of consumer electronics that it is going to be a big, big issue. Intelligence provided to Internet of Things devices. Internet of Things are generating, and this is the basis of their model, they're generating a lot of data. Once you have Internet of Things connected to the internet, your device, whether it is your car or your watch or whatever, is generating obviously a lot of data, and this is how the internet companies are making money. This data is then processed by big data tools and feed back into artificial intelligence. Therefore, artificial intelligence puts the hypothesis that Jovan goes 3 times a day to have a coffee at the attic. I go 2 or 3 times. Now, if I have a device that can control my movement in the building or whatever device that can control, that hypothesis can be checked and then the algorithm can be adjusted. Therefore, that closed circle, vicious circle between artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, cars and everything, big data, and again, artificial intelligence is going to be a powerful new model which will be used by internet companies. Data governance and data localization will be in the focus. In Geneva, we will have the series of data talks involving University of Geneva, CERN, ITU, Internet Governance Forum, and other players. And we would like to invite you. We'll announce these data talks, but the key idea is to discuss data governance from different perspectives: legal, ethical, technological, and other perspectives. Next. Digital trade and internet economy, with the preparation for the WTO summit in ministerial meeting in Buenos Aires, is going to be in the focus, but underlying tension will be this one, which was outlined in The Economist. Underlying tension will be pressure on the internet companies to share their wealth through the internet taxation, and the growing pressure from the movement towards protectionism worldwide. Therefore, that will be structural tension, which will be somehow reflected in discussion in WTO. ICANN, after the IANA transition, relatively quiet time at ICANN, but we can hear from Nigel if there are any sort of if there is any breeze or it's completely quiet weather in the ICANN world. There will be a trend is the digital policy shaped by core decisions. Those of you who have been attending these briefings, you can recall that I've been always alerting about the major digital governance development. If there are no rules, if there are no policies in place which are reasonable, which can protect reasonably citizens, citizens will go to the courts. A right to justice cannot be denied. And this is what is happening particularly in Europe, but also in other regions. You have and then what's happened with the right to be forgotten case is that suddenly the court decision made Google the biggest juridical organization in the world. Google is processing so far more than 600,000 requests to right to be forgotten. I mean, if you put all courts cases worldwide, I think they would come up to 100,000, maybe even less. What we are witnessing is that the courts are shaping global digital policy. They're not just addressing concrete cases, concrete disputes, which should be the court's decision, but they're also marking and introducing new policy. Uber case, which will be decided with the European Court of Justice can have a really serious ramification if Uber is declared by European Court of Justice to be a transportation company. Therefore, all transportation regulation will be applied to Uber. If it is declared to be information company, as Uber is arguing, then it will remain more or less in the same situation as we have today. Ninth trend is connecting the dots among digital policy silos. That will be also the major challenge. And the 10th trend is the digital realpolitik, from values to interests. We can expect more bilateral agreements. We can expect more deals and less global arrangement. And it will be the major challenge with potentially quite high impact on the way how internet has been governed so far. In particular, multi-stakeholder approach, inclusiveness. There are organizations like IGF, ICANN, and other players who develop quite elaborate way of including as wide as possible communities. Obviously, there are limitations and there are problems in the way how it is run, but it has been the major process that may be impacted with the current shift to the digital realpolitik. Next. Okay, main events in February ahead of us. ITU, Child Online Protection, starting this week. ITU Council Working Group on Internet. Then we'll have a meeting of network community in Washington, and then there will be also a meeting in February of the ITU group on the VUSIs. Therefore, it will be quite a busy start of the month for those colleagues who are following ITU developments. There will be also VUSIs consultation on 14th of February, second meeting in Geneva, in the preparation of the VUSIs forum, which will be held in June. And meeting in Vienna on strengthening confidence building measure in the OSCE under Austrian presidency. Austria took over presidency in January from Germany, and cyber is going to be very high on the Austrian OSCE presidency agenda. Domain Pulse meeting in Vienna, and very important meeting is Munich Security Conference in between 17th and 19th February, and according to the whole signals, cybersecurity is going to be quite prominent at this meeting. And it is going to be one of the first meetings where the new, let's say, security establishment in the United States will meet both the NATO partners, but also other players and actors in the world. And that is quite important event. Immediately after Munich Security Conference, we will have a week with the UN Group of Government Experts, third session. They will start drafting the final report for the UN General Assembly. And it is a closed meeting attended by 25 member states of the UNGG, but there will be probably a few side events and we may organize one side event on the what will be next after UNGG, what will be the future arrangements in the field of global cybersecurity. On 21st February, we'll have a briefing for heads of mission from the Southeast Europe. We are trying to connect discussions which are going in Geneva with the developments in Southeast Europe, where hate speech and use of the internet for the radicalization and the conflicts that existed 20 years ago in the region are basically sending the signals that there is need to do something with the hate speech in the region, Southeast Europe or Balkans or whatever you would like to call it. And we'll finish the month with the UN Human Rights Council, 34th session on the Human Rights Council, which will most likely discuss the question of privacy. Next. At JP, we have a just-in-time course on internet governance, which started last week. On the 9th of February, we have a webinar on standardization. We will be focusing more and more on the question of standardization. You probably noticed that at the GAP at Diplo, we try to identify issues which may not be in the high focus on the mainstream institutions and try to focus on them. Standardization is going to be a highly important issue. We'll have a briefing, as I already mentioned, of the heads of missions again, on 28th of February, the last day of the month. Well, that's sort of coincidence. We'll have our briefing about developments in February 2017. Next. now the event was now followed by 3 local hubs, Brazil, Tunisia, and Southeastern Europe. I guess this is a time for questions and comments. Shall we start from online community?
Hello, everyone. We had here in the chat room a very vivid discussion around global power shifts and implications for the governance of the internet. And we have 2 questions. One comes from Argentina, from Romina. The geo-economic map has changed in the Trump era. What's to be expected on electronic commerce? This is the first question. The second one is from Tracy from Trinidad and Tobago. Is there a unified EU position being proactively formulated in response to the emerging US policy as it relates to the likely impact on digital issues? So does the EU think about the position in response to digital developments under US administration?
The answer to the question from Romina on the geoeconomics, yes, obviously internet economy cannot exist outside the real economy, and what World Bank report showed us that digital economy covers only 5% of the global economy. Sometimes we see it much bigger. But whatever happens in the real geoeconomics field, especially in the United States, but also other countries, will definitely affect the internet. Therefore, if there are the measures and special tariffs imposed on the, let's say, movements of goods, importation, we can expect that that will sort of initiate or some moves on the countries which are affected, which may impact the internet, definitely internet commerce, e-commerce, but possibly also internet traffic as a whole. Because internet model, as you know, Google, Facebook, other models are interplayed between general traffic. You don't have the financial transactions as the direct way that could be addressed, but the economic model, business model is based on data. Therefore, the impact will definitely be there, and we can see already from these few developments at the beginning of the month that we have Colombia imposing 90% of taxes, Canada considered it Netflix taxes, Indonesia, and other countries. Therefore, taxation probably will be the shortcut for some measures that could reduce the profit of internet companies. Second question is very good question, and I've been asking my colleagues and friends from European Union, and it's a really interesting moment because you have a few players, major players in the global digital politics. You have United States, Russia when it comes to cybersecurity, and China when it comes to cyber economy, and the tension between, let's say, geopolitics between United States and Russia, and geoeconomics between United States and China. And European Union is basically there is a space which is definitely opening for European Union to become stronger and more, I would say, vocal promoter and protector of the unified internet and the core values which are behind the internet. In one article that I wrote for Maltese presidency, I said that that could be some sort of Aikido diplomacy out of the weakness. We know the situation in Europe is not very good. There are quite a few tensions, but maybe a sort of unification of the digital market and European digital market initiatives could be the point where Europe can regain momentum and first unify its own digital space, but also send a positive signal to the rest of the world, in particular about the values of the internet. Problems exist, we are aware of it, challenges exist, but there is a risk that we take for granted, because it's part of our daily routine, what has internet brought to us, from simple Skype communication to the e-commerce and the other tools. And I think the message from Europe in that direction could be an important message for both Europe itself, but also for the rest of the world. And I'm sure that we have quite a few colleagues from European Union member states who can probably further discuss such ideas. And we have 2 countries, Malta and Estonia, who will be presiding over the European Union during this year. Both countries are very digital savvy countries in different realms, and maybe from these 2 small countries, we may have some fresh breeze when it comes to digital Europe and the rest of the world. Questions, comments? It's coming. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yes, Nigel Hickson, ICANN. Just two comments, if I may. First of all, in your question to ICANN, and I'm glad we've been downgraded. It's always good to see. Yes, I mean, after the IANA transition, I think this is a more stable year. But of course, developments, as you say, geopolitical developments affect us all, and they affect ICANN. One of the discussions that are still taking place in terms of the accountability framework for ICANN is jurisdiction, and what jurisdiction ICANN is subject to. Of course, it's subject to US jurisdiction as being located in California, and I expect that will be a more prominent discussion topic in light of developments. There's also discussions on the auction monies through the GTLD program, and indeed a new GTLD round, perhaps in a couple of years' time. The other point I just wanted to make, in addition to your very comprehensive outline of all the things going on, is the G7 and the G20 sort of events. Both of the G7 and G20 have a sort of ICT component, and there'll be an ICT ministerial in April on the G20 on sort of digital transformation that Germany is sort of presiding over, and there'll be a multi-stakeholder component of that, where we have the ability to try and shape a roadmap for the future of ICT in the G20. Thanks.
Thank you, Nigel, for this reminder about the G7, which is presided by Italy, and G20 by Germany in the forthcoming period. Okay, if there are no, we missed today Richard Hill and his first question. Hope he's following online, and we will. If there are no other questions, I would like to thank you for your joining us today, both in situ and online, for our online community. We'll close this part of the briefing here in situ. We'll have some refreshment for our friends who are here in Geneva. Unfortunately, we cannot provide virtual refreshment, but I invite you to stay and to continue discussion in Southeast Europe. Brazilian group and Tunisian group. There will be ongoing chat about the developments related to the countries and the regions. Thank you and all the best. Have a nice and successful February. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Please stay with us for the regional updates now. May I remind you that a parallel room is available for our Southeastern European hub at the link you can see in the chat now. First, we will hear the update from Luca from Brazil, who will share updates from the region.
Good morning, Jovan. Good morning to everyone. Welcome to this first 2017 briefing from the Rio Hub. We had a very interesting debate at our regional webinar yesterday. We had two special guests. Our international guest, who was Alejandro Pisanti, the chair of ISOC Mexico and also professor at the National University of Mexico. He provided us an overview of the main evolutions in the digital policy arena in Mexico, and he made a link with the impact that the IGF produced in Mexico. IGF that was held in Guadalajara, and three main topics were particularly meaningful for the IGF and for the Mexican debate: the Internet of Things, the definition of net neutrality rules, and the debate on connectivity. And particularly these last two issues, net neutrality rules and connectivity, will come back in 2017 with the consultation that the telecom regulator is going to organize to define the federal law on telecommunications and broadcasting. Coming back to Brazil, we had Beatriz Kira from Internet Lab. She provided us an excellent overview of the main events of 2016 that will have an impact for sure also in 2017. Particularly the blocking of applications and websites was a particularly relevant issue in 2016. WhatsApp hit the headlines several times for having been blocked. There are currently 9 bills aimed at regulating WhatsApp in the Congress. Several of them want also to tackle the Marco Civil provision, and the regulation of application blocking has also triggered a debate over 2016 on cryptography, and this same debate is going to be very important also in 2017 due to the various bills that aim at regulating cryptography and that would probably modify the Marco Civil provisions if they are passed. Another very important issue was data protection. In 2016, the outgoing President Dilma Rousseff signed the Marco Civil regulation before leaving office that regulates not only net neutrality provision but also data protection provision online. But although data protection provision are regulated online, Brazil still lacks a general data protection legislation. There are two bills that are now under scrutiny from a special commission in the chamber, and the report analyzing those bills and providing some suggestion is expected to be released in the first semester of 2017. Last but not least, a very prominent topic in 2016 was the issue of data caps in fixed internet access. The issue has been debated at length in 2016 and was recently brought back to the attention of the general public by the Minister of Science and Technology and Telecommunication, that affirmed that data caps could be good to make the market more flexible. This statement has infuriated civil society, but this issue is expected to be addressed and hopefully solved by the Anatel, the regulator that is going to organize a consultation on data caps in 2017. That's all for this first webinar of the year. An excellent 2017 to everyone, and see you next month.
We will now hear the update from Houssem Kabi from Tunisia, who will refer to the implications of the new law in Tunisia on national biometric identity cards.
Hello everyone, my name is Houssem Kabi. I'm from Tunisia. I'm a network engineer, activist, and IGmena fellow. I'm here today to talk about the new bill launched by Tunisian government regarding the new biometric identity card. This bill was criticized from many experts as well from civil society actors. To summarize, what the major problem in it, we identify 4 major problems. The card, the collecting file and database, the access of personal information from the citizens, and the administrative and technical procedure. Let's begin with the first one, which is the card. The card is meant to collect the data which identify a person. So the needed data for that purpose is name and surname, date and place of birth, and biometric data, which is picture and fingerprint only. If data need to be added, we can add the name of the mother and the signature and the address for penal and fiscal reasons. And this data can be added in the encrypted part. For the second reason, which is the file, the file need to have a legal framework, which is not the case. In order to organize the collecting procedure and ensure the protection of the personal data. And along with that, an article need to be dedicated to the national database, which will be stored all the personal data of the citizens. The third one, which is ensuring this bill need to ensure the access of the person to their personal data, which is not the case here. And finally, for administrative procedure, don't clearly mention the the procedure, the storage, destruction, and the access to data. Here we recommend an explanation of this procedure. Along with the technical aspect, we recommend the clarification of these technical aspects in cooperation with other ministry like Ministry of Tech. Expert advice can be added here in order to make sure to make a good law in this field. So all this recommendation, we make a recommendation which will be and will remain the support and help for the Tunisian government in order to make a law which will match their expectation, along with preserving the protection of personal data, along with and the respect of the fundamental right and freedom of citizens. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for today's briefing on internet governance. The recording, presentation, IG barometer, and digest will be available soon. Thank you once again, and see you on 28th February.